we would stay with my grandparents. They had a little bar down in the basement, and my grandfather had beer, and I would sit on his lap. He'd give me a little taste of beer, and I loved the taste. And I knew that he had a case of beer in the back room. I finally got it open, and I chugged a couple of sips, and it tastes so good. And I put the cap back on it and put it in the thing like my grandfather wouldn't notice. I had a taste as a younger kid, and then I started drinking beer in high school, and then the military just accentuated that. To really mask my depression, Will, I just threw myself into my work, and I would go and work and be gone for weeks and months on end, and then I would come back. I felt like I just needed to be away. I got a DUI on March 1st. It was a Sunday evening up in Puyallup, Washington, and I felt so ashamed. I prided myself on being a professional driver. I've had several professional driving courses to be a protection agent and a security driver. I got cuffed and I got put in jail, and a family member came and bailed me out. I was in there for 2 hours, but you would have thought that I was in jail for 2 years. It was just crushing. And when I got home that night, I told my friends, I'm like, I'm never drinking again.
Any kind of doubts have creeped in since those 5 years, 8 months, and 3 days sober?
No, I never looked back, Will, and I'm really surprised. You have to be true to yourself. If you can look at yourself in the mirror and love what you see, then you've got a chance to make it. If you're looking in that mirror like I used to, and you don't recognize what's looking back at you, then it's a problem.
Hey, everybody, this is Will Gordon from the Willpower Podcast, briefly coming on before this next excellent episode to remind you all that did you know that 76%, you heard that right, 76% of you that follow my content regularly have not subscribed to my channel yet. And I'm really wondering why that is. So if you could, the easiest and freest way to help support my show is to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of it. Like it, share it, send it to people that you think it might help, because that's what I'm doing here. I've been through it. I lost my liver. I lost my kidney. I had such a severe alcohol addiction that I feel you. Okay. I understand what you're going through, and I'm really hoping that these stories are helping. So if you want to hear these stories keep coming, then please hit that subscribe button. It'll be the best decision that you'll ever make. Thank you so much for supporting me, and I really hope you enjoyed this next episode. I heard it was a pretty good one. Take care, everybody. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Willpower Podcast. I'm your host, Will Gordon, and today is going to be a very exciting episode. Today, I am honored to announce I have a very special man, someone who's had an eclectic life, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and a lot of in-betweens when it comes to overcoming adversity, alcohol use disorder, PTSD, and the like. So let me give you a brief bio on who we're about to meet right now. So Chaplain Sy Ali is a United States Air Force vet, a European powerlifting champ, a professional wrestler, USWF Hall of Famer. He spent time in the ring with Jimmy Snuka. He's an actor. He's a university lecturer. He's an elite bodyguard. He once guarded Al Gore, CEOs, royals. We can get into that. I'm actually really curious about that part. Now in Carmel, California, he is the site success manager at Alivo Learning, which is mentoring at-risk youths. We can get into that. You're the chaplain at you're the chaplain at Northwest Medical. It's spiritual support for patients, and author of a book called Out of the Storm, a 2024 memoir, which is now in Spanish, French, Italian, Mandarin. You're a dad to 3, grandpa to 1, and your mantra is faith flips despair to purpose, and one life saved is the world saved. So welcome to the Willpower Podcast with Will Gordon, Chaplain Sy Ali. How are you today?
Thanks, Will. Thank you for having me on. I'm great, man. I'm extremely blessed. Extremely blessed to be talking with you, too.
Yeah, I'm glad that we had a couple minutes off air to kind of get to know each other a little bit better, because I feel like we have a lot of common similarities, and I really want to explore those. So, Sy, if you could, something that you wrote in your book that really struck a chord with me. So you said, I was a full-blown alcoholic. I hit my knees and surrendered everything. The bottle, the pills, the life. What sparked that surrender on March 1st, 2020? And how did it feel handing over the controls?
I got a DUI on March 1st. It was a Sunday evening up in Puyallup, Washington, up in the Tacoma, Seattle area. And you know what, Will? I felt so ashamed. I prided myself on being a professional driver. I've had several professional driving courses to be a protection agent and a security driver, and I thought I had failed miserably. I got cuffed and I got put in jail, and a family member came, and bailed me out. I was in there for 2 hours, but you would have thought, Will, that I was in jail for 2 years. It was just crushing to me,
Mhm.
and my spirit and my ability to drive a vehicle. And when I got home that night, I told my friends, I'm like, I'm never drinking again. And I know they wanted to laugh, but they didn't. They were like, "Woo, where's this going?" And I'm like, This is it. There will be no more drinking ever again." I said, "If I'm able to work myself through this, that I will clear myself of the drinking." And I did, and it was difficult. I mean, I had some sleepless nights trying to get through that. And I had picked up my mom's Bible, and I had never really read through the Bible, Will, like from, Exodus to Revelations. I mean, I had never, uh, just never written, never wrote, read it and understood it, and I just started. It was like I was compelled to start reading, and I kept reading, and I never stopped. And it was almost as if God was like, "Okay, I like where this is going." And he approached me one night and told me that he was there for the suicide attempt. He brought my dad and my father-in-law in that office with me. He orchestrated all this. And he had been watching me, forever and a day. And he was like, "I want you to start writing about, the things that you went through." And I was argumentative with God. I was like, "I don't want the world to know my inadequacies or whatever."
Mm.
But I was compelled to write, Will. And once I started writing, the bug had really hit. And I continued to write about the process and how PTSD even starts. And it wasn't just like I was in the military and I was at war and I came back from something with PTSD. I had the death of my father, the death of my father-in-law, and then my divorce, all within maybe a 8-year time period. So there was a lot of things adverse that happened
Mm.
in my life. And I didn't know how to grieve, Will. I kept that in as opposed to
Yeah.
being able to go somewhere and be able to unload my feelings and my thoughts on losing my dad and my father-in-law. But I kept it in. And it just created, I hate to say it because I was a chaplain for cancer patients, but it was almost like a tumor that I could not release. I couldn't get over that. So that time period in 2000, a lot of things had happened. I mean, I wanted to go through seminary school, and I ended up in chaplaincy. I mean, I started writing, I started reading, and I couldn't afford like a full-blown seminary to go somewhere, and go through it. But I was taking like online courses and really taking it seriously and devoting a lot of time to it.
Mhm.
So I was able to really start writing, and the whole world opened up. I mean, that's God was like, "You know what? It's not necessarily that this is for you, but others will read this and you will be of comfort to others. That's why I want you to write this." And that's why I wrote it. And I wrote it, Will. There was only 160 pages, so younger kids can read it as well. And I made it, kind of not a long memoir, not like a 500-page autobiography, but I wanted folks to know, to touch on the points of how this happened, how I was able to get around it, and where I'm at today, which is a much, much better place.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really fascinating and inspiring that you had a moment of deep reflection, it sounded like, in a come to God kind of moment. So I'm curious about your life up until that point. Like, what brought you to the point, or what was going on? I know you mentioned a few things right there that was going on in your life, but what was your drinking style like? I'm really curious to know before we jump into anything
I,
else.
a lot of people didn't think that I was an alcoholic. And I'm like, you know what? If I can go out, Will, in a social setting and have one drink and say, "Oh, that's it, I'm out," then that would have been fine. But I couldn't do that. If I was going out and having a margarita, I would probably have 4 or 5 margaritas,
Mhm.
so it wasn't like I could control my drinking. And I was in a dark place. I mean, I was in a dark place for many, many years. I was detached from my marriage. I put myself on the road and I did long, protection assignments. I would do like 6, 7, 8 month gigs on the road, and I spent a lot of time away from home. So I was really disconnected. And I know I was a drinker. I mean, people, will say, "Oh, you weren't that bad." I mean, I wasn't a hellraiser or anything, but I was the life of the party. I definitely was that, but I was a courteous drunk. I wasn't a mean drunk. At least I don't believe I was. Most people were like, you just get a little bit louder, and then next thing you know, you're snoring, you're over in the corner sleeping. So, yeah, I was
Mm.
definitely an alcoholic. There's no way that I can deny that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a really long time for me to finally come to terms with me being an alcoholic, and I hate the term, I hate saying it, but because it does put, like, an identity on top of you, where sometimes I feel like it doesn't necessarily serve the greater good, but that's a topic for a different conversation. So you had a lot going on in your life. You had it sounded like you were just in turmoil constantly. What was it about alcohol? And I know you just mentioned that you wasn't necessarily like an issue, like you getting in trouble or anything like that. But what was the moment where you just said, like, this is, it's not serving me anymore? I mean, was that the book? Was that what it was, or was that something different besides the book?
No, it was that night that I got that DUI.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, getting handcuffed and arrested. And like I said, I
Mhm.
prided myself on being a great, thorough driver. I've driven dignitaries, I've driven all over in foreign countries. And I just felt I was crushed. I think my spirit was just crushed. And I
Yeah.
felt so bad. And I'm like, this is like the low point. I'm sitting here and maybe they thought that I wasn't going to get bailed out. So they put me in the orange pants and sweatshirt and I went in this holding area. And there was a bunch of guys in this holding area and they're like, what are you in for? I said, I got a DUI. And they were like, how many? I said, this is the first. And they were like, oh, we've had six. I heard other guys say we had 7 or 8. They looked at me like I was a newbie of DUIs. And I'm like, you know what, guys? I just messed up. And I will never, ever let that happen again. And that day
No.
really set the course for ministry. It set the course for me stopping foul language. I got my degree in chaplaincy and once the pandemic was over with, I no longer work with Northwest Specialties, but that's where I started my chaplaincy career, dealing with terminally ill cancer patients. And a lot of people tell me that was a rough way to start out as a brand new chaplain, but I went right into the fire, so to speak, with cancer patients that were deemed terminal and having to walk with them and their families and be like that spiritual protector. So I went from like a personal or dignitary protection agent to now being like a spiritual protector. And I still
Mhm.
consider myself that today, although I don't work with Northwest Medical. I work at several personal care homes here in Monterey County. I mean, I do sacraments, I do end of life ceremonies and things like that. So I'm always connected. And then when I became
Yeah.
homeless in 2022, I was working with at-risk veterans that had PTSD much worse than me, Will. So it was a learning experience on dealing with other veterans who are just coming back from Iran and Afghanistan and have all
Mhm.
these demons. So God has put me
Uh,
through a lot of different paces, and it's just been an interesting run.
yeah, I'm really curious about. I'm just fascinated with with how much emphasis we should in gratefulness and thank and just we should be thanking everyone in our forces. And then when they come home, when you guys come home, there seems to be very less, much less support than what you what you deserve, honestly. Um, when you were coming home and you started working with those vets, what was some of the common symptoms that you would notice with them in substance abuse issues? And I'm really curious to know about what you encountered with them.
I think a lot of it, Will, was like detachment. And
Mm,
there was one veteran who he was a chef. Even though we lived in a homeless shelter, he worked at a Greek restaurant in Marina, California, and he would work late at night. And some of the other veterans, we were in like old military housing, and I would wait up for him, and he would bring gyros, and we would eat, and then we would talk. And then I would ask him. I asked him one night. I was like, "What happened over there?" And I went right out and said, how many lives do you think you took?" And he didn't get mad at it. He just reflected and he was like, "Saad, really, to be honest with you, I had to lose count because I was carrying this. He was like, and it got to a point where I figured, and he would go in, he did everything for his team. He would be the first guy in. He was an Army Ranger, and he was like, it was my team or them. So that was an easy decision. He was telling me to make sure that I had to take other people out. I didn't want to, but I had to protect my team. And he said I became immune to it. I just tried to put it somewhere in my mind where it didn't bother me. But when he got back stateside, he was a drinker like me, and he tried to take his life, but the pistol malfunctioned on him. And I was like, "Don't you think that that's some sort of sign?" And, you know, he ended up leaving, and I don't know where he was at. The last thing I heard, he was down in Texas and not answering the phone, so I can't get a hold of him. It was conversations like that. Another veteran
Mm.
had been abused by a family member when he was a kid, and he ended up working at Fort Meade, which is like the intel area over in Washington, D.C. It's in Maryland. So he worked intel, very bright individual, very smart, intelligent, but just struggling mentally, and he would have bouts of anger, and we would talk, and I'm like, you know, I'm just gonna listen. I've never been physically abused, so I can't put myself in your feet. So all I can do is listen to you. And it was different things like that. There was another gentleman who was he was a Green Beret. He was a helo pilot. He graduated at West Point, and he was living in a van in Salinas with a chicken, a live chicken that was his like protection animal, his like comfort animal. And I was like, "A chicken?" And they finally convinced him to come to the shelter, and we had to convince him to bathe because he was just grimy, and he got cleaned up, and we were talking, and he just had lost it from being over in the desert, and he was flying like covert ops missions for CIA. And so I've got him, I've got the Army Ranger, I've got an older gentleman who was a Navy vet whose wife died of cancer because she cleaned his clothes and he was in a ship that had asbestos. So she got the cancer from asbestos. So everybody's journeys were different, Will. So, you know, I was feeling bad that I was homeless, but God was like, hey, you're a chaplain. This is a ready made audience for you. Get in the mix and go help others. If you can't help them, at least be an ear. Listen to them. Let them get their grievances out. And I found success there. Even though I was homeless and I thought like God was punishing me, he was actually like, I put you in this position. Go help these veterans.
When you were homeless, can you go into that a little bit more? I mean, you're a chaplain now. You've had this very eclectic, interesting life. I mean, you were in the ring with Jimmy Snuka. Like you have so much of your story that I'm just fascinated in. So, can you tell me what was going on in your life when you ended up homeless?
Well, I would tell people I'm one step between being a millionaire and a one step between being homeless. I was hoping for the former, not the latter, but the latter occurred. I was I left the Pacific Northwest and I went back home to Pittsburgh, PA. My son's side of fourth was playing college football, so I wanted to see his games. And I had found this young crew that wanted to do a documentary on my life. It was called Project Resurrection, but we didn't have the money for it. And I just felt like Pittsburgh wasn't that for me. Something in California was calling me. So in 2022, I left Pittsburgh and I came to California to work for a small security firm, but they really didn't have the money to pay my salary. So I was living in my office with the security company. So technically, with the government, I was already homeless. So the company said they were shutting down. They told me, well, we can fly you back to Pittsburgh or the Pacific Northwest. I said, no, I'm staying here. So I went over to this shelter called the Veterans Transition Center where they help, you know, restore veterans. I didn't have
Mhm.
any money, no car, no job. And I ended up there. And I really, really thought that God was upset with me until I realized I opened my eyes and I'm like, hey, I'm here. I'm a chaplain and there are people struggling. So let me get out and let me start working with people. And they got me an office there. Even though I was homeless, they gave me a little office where veterans can come talk to me. We could
Mm,
pray. I could pray over them or just listen, just be an ear and let them get things off of their chest.
yeah.
So I didn't have any money. So in order to get like 300 a month from the state of California, I had to work Delray Oaks is situated between Seaside, California and Monterey. And I had to go work for Department of Public Works, cleaning up a park, cleaning up bathrooms, scrubbing toilets. That's how I was able to get 300 a month. But the gentleman who was running Department of Public Works looked at me. He was like, "Man," he was like, "You're pretty fit for your age." So we actually got along good. And then one of my housemates, who was the Navy guy, had multiple DUIs, Will. So he couldn't drive his car. So I would drive him around. And I saw this ad for a youth coach for Alevo. And I'm like, I can't do it. I can't. He was like, take my car. He was like, I can't drive it. So I took his car and I went over and I interviewed for Alevo. And I got the job becoming a youth coach at a elementary school in Salinas,
Mhm.
California. And the gentleman ended up gifting me his car. He was like, "You have done so much for people in this homeless shelter. I'm giving you." He told me, "Let's go to the DMV." I'm like, "Well, what's going on?" He was like, "Take me to DMV." We go in there and he signed his car over to
Sign
me
the
with a
papers. Yeah.
2016 Nissan. He gave me the car, Will. So I was able to get that job. I was able to get promoted to a site success manager. I was able to move out of the shelter. And I'm in like a small house that's right next door to the nursing home that I minister to. So they have rooms over here for staff. So I'm renting a room in Carmel, but I've got access to a full house. So I was able to work my way out of there, man. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. I was like, God is so great, man. I'm too stupid to really know how great he is, but he's slowly getting me.
Well, I feel like, however you want to express the word God, and that's obviously very personal to everyone living, but I know what God feels like, and God feels like passion. God feels like purpose. God feels like action. God feels like serving, helping others, right? And the second you started doing these things, like the universe started to kind of reciprocate that emotion, that love, that loving embrace of wow, like look at Sai helping others. Look at Sai doing things for others. Look at Sai, willing to, hang out with this person and then this person. Like, I think the universe rewards kindness. I really do in hard work. And I think that's really cool that you got to that point. When did you notice that you wanted to be, were you a religious person growing up?
No, but I was around, I had family members who were ministers. My second wife, Alicia, her dad was who Reverend Samuel Williams George, who I wrote about in my book, was a Presbyterian minister. And it was funny, Will, but like when I was still married and still drinking, I would be the liturgist at church, meaning I would, do the announcements, do the opening scripture, and then the pastor would take over and do the sermon. But my father-in-law always mentioned my name. Let's I be the liturgist. Let's I. And one day at dinner, he asked me, did I ever consider a seminary? And I almost spit out my food laughing. I mean, I thought it was the funniest thing. My family laughed, but he never laughed. He was like, "Si, you got something." He was like, "I watch people watching you when you talk. Your words are very compelling to people." He told me that. And I blew it off, Will. I didn't know I would be where I'm at today. But he saw something even back then, and I thought I was gonna be a pastor in church, but I think God was just like, "Look, just go out and be impactful. Your story is your story. If people listen to it, if they're inspired by it, if they can take your story and let that help them, then be of value that way. I don't necessarily want you to be a pastor in a church, but I want you to be impactful." And one of my mentors said, "Hey, don't necessarily think you're going to be a pastor in church." She was like, "Ministry is so big. There's so many things to do under ministry. Just let him guide you there." So being in schools and working with these kids, they come to me. These kids are drawn to me. It's not just the physique. I mean, I know they comment on my arms and want to know how old I am and things like that, but they're drawn to me and they tell me things that they won't tell the other coaches. So I know there's something there spiritually that connects with the kids, and it keeps me young. Will I'll be 65 Christmas, and I'm out there running around with kindergartners, and first graders, and you were a teacher, so I'm preaching to the
Yeah.
choir here with you. You know how that is.
Yeah.
It's so full.
Yeah. Yeah, I taught middle school for almost 13 years, so I definitely know the energy that it takes just to to keep up with them,
Yeah,
and the tricks that they'll likely play on you as your best.
absolutely. Hey,
But
Will, they
it's
told me
all fun.
they told me a couple weeks ago, I went out, and the kids were playing a game, and this kid told me, he was like, "Coach, you're drip." I didn't know what that meant. I was like, "I'm looking at my underarm, see if I'm sweating." I said, "Drip." He was like, "You don't know what that means?" I said, "No." He was like, "That means you're coordinated. You got your black Alevo hat, your orange polo, your orange
Yep.
shoes, your black." He told me I was looking good, and I thought he was cutting me down. I didn't even know what drip meant.
Yeah, usually it's the
So,
opposite, so if it's yeah, if it sounds like a bad thing, it typically means the worse it sounds, the better
right.
it is. Yeah. If they say it's nasty or something, that's pretty good, right?
You
Well, I don't know if
know,
that one
you
is any
know.
more cool. I don't that one might not be cool anymore. That was cool when I was growing up, not so much I don't know if it is now, but it is, but, so 5 years, 8 months, and 3 days sober as of today. I did the math for you.
Yeah.
What's the toughest doubt that tests you now? What's the toughest
You know what?
doubt
It
that
wasn't
tests you now?
say that one more time, Will.
Yeah. So what's the toughest doubt, your doubt that tests you now? So you had doubts, I'm guessing, during this whole process of you becoming a sober person and changing your life and serving others and helping at-risk youths. I mean, you're just doing amazing, commendable work. So any kind of doubts have creeped in since those 5 years, 8 months, and 3 days sober?
No, I never looked back, Will, and I'm really surprised. I mean, I don't necessarily go to bars, but when I go home back to Pittsburgh to visit family, my one cousin is the general manager of an Elks club. So there's, drinking in there, and I don't necessarily, I wouldn't go to bars out here, but there's no temptation at all. Now, when I was flying back home last Christmas, the f- I the flight attendant mistakenly gave me sparkling wine as opposed to sparkling water. And I was busy talking with my seatmate, and I took a sip, and it was horrible. I looked at it, and the head flight attendant saw the look on my face. She was like, "What happened?" I was like, "This isn't water." She was like, "No, he inadvertently served you wine." It was so nasty. So there's never been any temptation. I can go to places. Alevo's a young company. So when we do company events, I mean, there's a lot of these are young employees, so they're vibrant and they go hang out. I can go out and hang with these young employees and talk, but there's my curfew. I'm out maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock, and they'll be out till the wee hours of the morning. I can't hang like that, but I can still be in those environments and not even be tempted, which I never, for being over 5 years, I've never had any temptations ever. I mean, if anything, I just pray for patience because when I drive out here on these California roads, these people put you
Mhm.
to the test. They will, I
Mhm.
mean, when you get flipped off by an 85-year-old lady who cut me off, and I just looked at her and I wanted to say, I just like keep driving, side. Don't even acknowledge, keep moving. So I just pray
Yeah.
for patience, but I don't have any doubts or any regrets. I mean, when I walked away from drinking, I thought, well, I was going to really struggle. And my sister
Yeah.
asked me at one point, she was like, "You still on the wagon?" And I was like, "Oh, sis." I said, "Yeah, I don't think I'm falling off of this." So I know my family and friends probably had doubts to see how long I can make it, but once I stopped, I never looked back.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, maintaining long-term sobriety like that is not easy. So how do you do it? What are some helpful tips that you use or mindsets?
I drink those ice waters, those ice flavored sparkling waters. That's my drink of choice. My everything that I do now, the four fitness levels is spiritual fitness, physical fitness, mental fitness, and financial fitness. It's the
Mm.
financial fitness has always kind of dogged me. But even now, when I got divorced, Will, my credit scores were down in the low fours. And now I'm like pushing almost 800. So I tried really hard to just be disciplined on what I spend. I like tennis shoes. So that's really all I do because I'm out on these black tops. I'm out in school. So I just need comfortable shoes. And kids think my shoes are like $200. I'm like, are you kidding? I won't spend over $80 for tennis shoes. And that's really my only
Yeah.
vice. I mean, I'm living within my means. I don't get carried away. I'm just real balanced as far as how I manage my finances. I may not have a lot, but I'm making sure that I can save a little bit. I can pay my bills. So I'm in a much better place, even financially. Physically, I'm in the gym 4 or 5 days a week. That'll never change.
Yeah, you seem like you seem like you can still get in the ring.
I know a lot of people say that. I mean, I wouldn't want to take those bumps though, Will. I really wouldn't. I would be sore for days. I wouldn't be able to get out of bed if I took 2 bumps in the ring right now. But yeah, I stay fit, and I think that's again, that's what draws the kids to me in school, because they want to know. They say, "Oh, you're strong." They don't. They look at you. They think you're strong. I'm like, I'm not strong. I don't lift the weights I used to, but I'm consistently in the gym, so that helps.
Yeah,
That helps my
consistency is
mental
everything.
health.
Mhm.
And the writing. I'm working on the second book, which is entitled The Corporate Smoke Jumper. And that's strictly about my protection work and the little mission ops. So that'll be out maybe toward the end of 2026. But that's where National Geographic meets Mission Impossible. So that's my second book that'll be coming out.
Well, that sounds fascinating. I can't wait to get a hold on that one. If you could, Sai, I would love to hear a story or two that you either are thinking about writing in the book or maybe that just comes to mind. And if you could relate it to maybe some kind of maybe there was some kind of like drinking involved that the app, dealing with that circumstance that you had to endure and then you had, and then you're trying to just maybe like wind down after. I don't know. Something like that would just be super, I think, helpful and interesting for our listeners.
I I think I was the one to say if we did it, we had a big protection detail. And when the protectees would leave, we would have what's known as a wheels up party. So all the agents would get together. I would be the one spearheading that. I would go look for a place that can handle, if it was a big detail, like, 30 to 40 agents or however many we had, I would be the one to spearhead that. I would be the one saying, hey, let's go out and do karaoke. And having these rough and tough professional protection agents singing in karaoke is priceless within itself. But I was always that guy who was trying to set up something for everybody to get together, just to have some sort of fellowship. But
Yeah.
I noticed, Will, when I stopped drinking and when I became a minister, a lot of my friends stopped talking to me. And I
Mm.
don't know why that is. One friend who I traveled with all over the country, I was like, "What's going on? You don't want to talk to me anymore." And she was like, "I don't know. You're a preacher and all." I'm like, that doesn't mean my whole demeanor has changed. I'm still Psy. There's just things that I'm focused on. It's not, but I was that guy. I was the guy who put everything together, who would set up the parties, who would be the one, hey, when we got to a country, let's find a karaoke bar. Let's tear it up in here. Let's have fun. So a lot of people miss that. A lot of people miss the going out, the social. Um,
Mm.
Lost friends over that, and that was disturbing to me. That was really disturbing. When I stopped drinking and I became a chaplain, a lot of people just stopped talking to me. I that I couldn't
That
wrap
that
my
must be
arms.
really hard. I mean, I would think it. Well, I don't know. I mean, that might be because I can look at it from both ends of this coin, right? I mean, when you devote yourself to God and you have people who are still on the periphery of your life, and yes, you want them in your life, but that could be a really tall ask for people that know how much of a commitment this is that you just embarked on, right? It could be a
Agreed.
little tricky. Yeah. But that just, they'll come around, I'm sure, if it's meant to be
I think so.
to be it.
I think so. I mean, I
Yeah.
still love sports. I still talk trash. I mean, if it's about sports, I have fun with it. I'm not mean spirited on anything, And one of the first things I asked God, when He anointed me and said, "Hey, this is what I want," I'm like, "Do I have to lose my sense of humor?" And I think God found that actually funny. He was like, "You lose your sense of humor? No, just go out and be you, but be mindful of other people." And the tongue is like the most powerful muscle in the body. You can uplift people or you can break them down by your words. So I'm very careful, particularly working with young people, Will, on how I talk to them because young people, I don't want to say they get easily offended, but they're you have to watch. And me being a former military and working with, high level protection agents, everything was by the book and spit and polish. Now I'm working with young coaches and that, and I have to be very careful on how I talk to them. So I'm having to learn a few things, particularly working with such a young and diverse company like Alevo, and then working with
Mhm.
other big corporations, which is pretty cut and dry. I'm learning about how to address young people, how to give constructive feedback, and not just so they look at it as criticism. It's
Mm.
I'm learning as we go along here.
Yeah. So, Sai, I had this written down that I really wanted to ask you. It's just something that you've written in your book. I'd come off a 3-week detail in the Middle East, land in Seattle, and be blackout drunk by midnight. That was my routine. So my question would be, how did alcohol sneak in as your go-to after the chaos? Like, so all that job that you had, that very chaotic, high stress job, right? What was that like? Tell me about it.
That was the only way that I can find myself winding down. Your body clock gets thrown off when you do global travel. When you're country to country, there was sometimes, well, I'd wake up and not know where I was in the world. So by the time I got home, it took me a while to unwind, to take all the operational stuff that's going on in my mind and making sure everybody gets home at night. And when I go home, I'm just really ready to decompress. And vodka really was my drink of choice. I mean, I could go through a jug of vodka in a couple of days. And then I just noticed, Will, I looked at my skin when I was drinking. I looked ashen. I looked gray. And a friend told me, she was like, if you really are considering stopping drinking, your whole body's going to change. You're going to get your color back. She was like, you look ashen. And I'm like, really? She was like, yeah, I can tell you're a drinker. And she was a physician. She was like, so if you're really serious about it, you're going to notice your skin texture and color will come back.
Yep.
It'll be good for you. I don't know if it was the same way with you, but I just noticed, after a year or so after, I noticed that the pictures that I had prior to, I was hungover, man. I was
Yeah,
hungover from I kept drinking.
yeah. Well, your body physically does change. I mean, ever since I removed alcohol completely from my body, uh, yeah, I've lost weight. My skin looks cleaner. Yeah, I just metabolize food more efficiently, like that kind of thing. Like all these things, we're eating crap and we're drinking whatever. We're just, just quieting the noise, even though it's just amplifying the noise. Like the next morning, oh my gosh, yes.
When I would come home, it would take me a while to get back into the family routine because my mind
Sure.
was probably still in another country and worried, okay. So by the time I got home and got acclimated with my family, it would be time to go back on another trip. So I think
Mm,
it's just I just put myself to really mask my depression, Will, I just threw myself into my work. And I would go and work and be gone for weeks and months on end. And then I would come back. And I felt like I just needed to be away because I couldn't, I couldn't really explain to my wife. I couldn't explain to my kids that I was so deeply, deeply depressed and in such a dark place and still working as a protection agent. So I wasn't never drank on a job or anything. That was never, I mean, I was a professional. I mean, I
I
could
mean,
draw,
y-
the links in between. Go ahead, please.
yeah. I mean, the people that you were I mean, were you Secret Service? Were you adjacent to Secret Service? Like, because if you have people in here like Al Gore, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
It was a private company that had governmental contracts.
gotcha.
So for vice presidents, after a certain length of time, their Secret Service detail goes away. So for Vice President Gore, when I was living in Alexandria, my wife and I would go to a watering hole called the Calvert Grill, which were a lot of political types would be in there. But I met Al's brother-in-law, who was an attorney, and he was the one who said, he was like, "Sy, you would be perfect for Al." But I was on active duty orders after 9/11. The guy's name was Frank Unger. He was Clinton's deputy director of the Justice Department. Really
Mhm.
sharp guy. And we would smoke cigars at night. And once the restaurant time was over, we would smoke cigars. He knew I was on active duty. He was like, let me know when you get off of active duty, because I want to put you in touch with Al. So when I came off of active duty in 2002, I left the military, and that next day I was assigned to Vice President Gore. He was speaking at the Congressional Black Caucus in Washington, D.C. And that's how I got to know him and work with him. And I worked with him in Las Vegas for like a week weeks at a time. Um, but no, I was in a private company that had these sort of contracts.
Mhm.
Mikhail Gorbachev, when he came to the U.S., didn't have Secret Service because he was a former president. He had KGB agents, but they hired the company I worked for, to have the American agents help them get from point A to point B. And
Mm.
working with Archbishop Desmond Tutu was with a private company. So private firms had the training apparatus. I mean, it was training similar. And then I got trained when I was in the Air Force over in Germany. I trained with Germany's GSG-9, which was their counterterrorism group. And they had a protection training program that I got to attend. So I had the training for this.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
and so it was, I got to work, I've got to work with Colin Powell. In one afternoon, I had Colin Powell, Madeleine Albright, and James Baker, who were the three former secretaries of state. I had all three of them one afternoon. So I was around a lot of diplomats, lots of high net worth people, families that
I
were,
bet.
ultra wealthy. So I had
Talk about
access to a
a
lot of different people.
Yeah, talk about a high stress job though. No?
I think that's probably why the drinking is heavy in that industry. Is you're under duress. I mean, the last thing you want. When I worked for a CEO of an airline company, his wife told me when I went to their house to do the surveys and that, she was like, "Don't you lose him." And she said it with a smile on her face, but I'm like, she's basically saying my husband better come home at night. So knowing that it's a high stress job. So yeah, a lot of the agents drank. A lot of them did. I don't know about drugs because I really wasn't into that, but I knew a lot
Mm.
of agents loved their alcohol, loved their beer, particularly when the protection detail was over, because it's that high stress. Going in, last thing I want to do is lose this person or lose their kids or whatever. So it's a high stress job.
Yeah, I can only imagine, especially with the political climate the way it is nowadays, with people getting shot, there's assassination attempts. I mean, it's exhausting when you think about how stressful of a job those people have, working on the front lines of our, protecting our politicians and the like, right?
It is. I feel for the Secret Service because I know they got their work cut out, because this president moves from place to place. I mean, back and forth to Florida, his New Jersey residence. That's a lot of moving parts for the Secret Service.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for doing a job like that because I know there's no way I could ever do a job like that. So I'm glad there's people like you, Sai, out there that are protecting us.
Right.
How long did you drink for? I mean, it's a long time
Oh,
that you spent drinking.
yeah,
So you
yeah.
think it would have been a little more difficult, or you would have think it would have been a little more challenging, at least as far as getting through that first year, right?
Yeah. I mean, and I started drinking. Well, my grandparents when we would stay with my grandparents, they had a little bar down in the basement, and my grandfather had beer. And I would sit on his lap. He'd give me a little taste of beer, and I loved the taste. And I knew that he had a case of beer in the back room, but I didn't know how to do a bottle opener. So I worked at this one bottle for like forever, and I finally got it open, Will. And I chugged a couple of sips, and it tastes so good. And I put the cap back on it and put it in the thing like my grandfather wouldn't notice that somebody was tearing breath.
That's right.
So he caught me. He was like, "Okay, I'm gonna make you drink this whole beer." And I drank it down with no problem. He was like, "Don't you dare tell your grandmother you did it." So I had a taste as a younger kid, and then I started drinking beer in high school because although we lived in Pennsylvania, where the age limit was 21, we were right on the border with Ohio, so we can go across the border, and it was 18. So we were able to get beer, at 18 over in Ohio and bring it back to PA. So I started drinking early, and then the military just accentuated that. I went to Germany right out of my police training and all my basic training, and then I had drank German beer, and then I was like, "Oh my goodness, German beer is amazing. It's great." So, yeah, I've been drinking for years.
Before we start to wrap up this episode, I was really curious about also your time as a professional wrestler. Could you talk a little bit about that? Your stint in wrestling and your relationship with Jimmy Snuka? Just quickly,
Yeah,
we'll say.
yeah.
You don't have to get into too elaborate about it.
I had always been a big wrestling fan growing up, but I had no idea that I would be doing it. So I was in Denver at the old Stapleton Airport, and my first wife's father had cancer. So I had left the powerlifting meet in Philly and flew to Colorado. And then the night before, WWF was having a show in Denver. So I went to go see it, and I stayed at a hotel. And then the following day, I was going to fly back to Germany. So when I got to Stapleton, I ended up in this bar, and Tony Atlas was in there. The Iron Sheik was there. Ricky Steamboat was there. And I had a conversation with these guys, and I was powerlifting at the time. So I had some size on me. And Tony Atlas was like, "Man, you got some size. You ever thought about being a professional wrestler?" I was like, "Not really, but it's intriguing." So he gave me the name of Tony Altimore, who was Lou Albano's tag team partner when they were the Sicilians. And he had a training center up in Orange, Connecticut. So I got out of the military and I got with Tony, and I left out of the military. I got divorced and I ended up at a training center in Connecticut. And that's how my career started. But I didn't have the money to stay up there. And Tony had got me a job working as a security guard at night in New Haven. But he was like, "Cy, I would keep you here." He was like, "I know you got what it takes to become a really good wrestler." He was like,
Yeah.
"But, the owner of the wrestling school wanted the money." And so I had to drop out. I went back to Pittsburgh, and then I fell in with a couple of groups in Pittsburgh. And that's when my wrestling career kind of took off. It was the most fun, Will, I've ever had in my life. Nothing, and I mean nothing, comes close to the time I had in wrestling. And when I was working for the USWF, United States Wrestling Federation, up in New York, they brought Snuka in for a lot of shows. We had like a 1 week tour. And I noticed with my match, Snuka would be like at the curtain watching. So we went out one night. Somebody sponsored a get together, food and drinks. And Jimmy had told me, I said, "Jimmy, you're watching me." He was like, he said, "You got you're a beautiful athlete." But he was like, "You got to slow down." He was like, "You're just high spot after high spot after high spot." So he told me, he worked with the ring psychology thing with me of how to pace a match, know when to do your high spots, know when to bring it back down. So he was very instrumental in my career. And I never went to the WWF because guys were going up there, but they were enhancement talent. I wasn't going to go on TV just to be saying I'm on TV to get squashed by whoever was the big names in WWF at the time. But a lot of my colleagues would go up there. So I shied away from that. So I stayed on the independent circuits where I can hone in on my different characters. I worked as the Iraqi assassin. I worked as Jumpin' Jack Flash, the Chocolate Playboy, Cy Youngblood, Sergeant Clinton, all different gimmicks. And I love just doing different characters.
Oh my gosh.
A friend of mine,
Yeah, that's
uh,
what was the best
teaching out
lesson that you learned from that whole experience? Like, if you could take one lesson that you learned from it, good or bad, but what would it be?
comfortability in speaking.
Hmm.
That's how I
Really?
honed in. That's how I became a college lecturer, because I was never intimidated about who I was speaking in front of. I did TV shows and radio shows, to promote wrestling. But when I became, protection agent, and I started talking about international security, big lecture halls, University of Pittsburgh and OSU, Ohio State, I mean, all these different places where I got to speak, I was
Yeah.
comfortable. So wrestling gave me that confidence to be able to present in front of people. It really did, and it was so much fun, Will. Oh my goodness, I had so much fun. I got to tell you this one story. So I'm wrestling as a chocolate Playboy. The Playboy was a little short on cash, so what I would do is throw Hershey's Kisses out to the women. I had my little bow tie and cummerbund, and I didn't have enough candy. So this woman, she had to be in her late 70s, said, next time, she shouts this at me, Will, next time, bring some more chocolates, you cheap bastard, she called me. And before she can even say that, Will, I scooped up underneath the rope and I went out to go kiss her. I was going to go kiss her on the cheek, and she turned and she kissed me right in the mouth and she tongued me. And everybody sat there and watched this. She got a standing ovation from the crowd. I looked at her. I said, well played, ma'am. She said, yeah, I got you. It's just those sort of night made everything for me. It was just so crazy and so much fun, but physically demanding.
Yeah. Okay, last two questions here. If your story saves anyone in the world from alcohol, like from falling into alcohol and getting lost, um, how do you get them out of that? What would be your first piece of advice?
You have to be true to yourself. You know, when I go out and whenever I get a chance, hopefully I'll be with the Speakers Bureau. I'm going to carry a mirror with me just to do the mirror test. If you can look at yourself in the mirror and love what you see, then you've got a chance to make it. If you're looking in that mirror like I used to, and you don't recognize what's looking back at you, then it's a problem. So you really have to be honest with yourself.
Mhm.
So I was very vulnerable. So I opened up and said, hey, I struggled. So if anybody can take away from my story saying, you know what? He was honest with himself. I need to be honest with myself. If you can't be honest with yourself in the situation you're in, you're going to really struggle. But if you can be honest and look in the mirror and say, hey, I want at some point to love what I see looking back at me, I think you're going to be okay. And I think that's the takeaway. At least the feedback I'm getting from people is, man, you were really tough and honest with yourself. That motivated me to become equally as honest with myself. So I hope that's a
Mm.
takeaway from the book, Will.
Yeah, 100%. I think you just nailed it too. What a great piece of advice. Just to thine self be true, right? Be authentic, be genuine, be kind.
All the
Yeah,
above.
we lose all of the above. Yeah, authenticity is key though. Yeah,
Yes.
always never forget the version of yourself that is deep within you. You know, that childlike wonder, as I like to call it, like that whatever made you excited and different and fun, right? Embrace that person because that's what people like to see. People like want to see authenticity over everything else.
And kids notice that when I go into these schools, Will, they see that. That's what brings
Mhm.
them over to me. They see that.
100%.
And I think the kids are attracted to that. So, I don't want that flame to ever go out. I mean, well, yeah, I'm not going to be on this earth forever, but as long as I'm walking it, I want that flame to be really bright in bringing those people in.
That's a great way to end it. What do you say?
It's awesome talking with you. Man, I
Yeah,
gotta
Chaplain
interview
Sy.
you one day. I'm gonna have to
Oh,
interview
thank
your
you.
story just
Hey,
equally as fascinating, man.
oh, I'm just fascinated. I'm just a very curious person. I'm just a very curious person.
It
So
comes through,
it's just
but it's
yeah, I'm passionate. I'm interested in everything. So it just like doesn't matter what. I mean, yeah, I'm just so lucky that I found someone who has such an interesting life. You've lived such an interesting life, and now you're devoting the rest of your life to giving back into God, into faith, and all the things that make life so precious. So
yeah.
thank you, Cy, for coming on the Willpower
Oh
podcast
no,
with Will Gordon.
this this was a great one. Thank you for having me on. All the best to you, man. Your journey is I love your journey. You notice we were talking before the show. I was
Mhm.
equally impressed with your background, especially in teaching. But God bless you, man. You take care of yourself.
Yeah, Cy, before we jump off, if people want to contact you, locate you, ask you a question, whatever, what's the best place to reach you right now?
You can go to my website. It's Fit Squad, PHIT. That stands for prophecy, honor, integrity, and transformation. So fitsquad.com. And you can get all the information of the book. The book is available in Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, anywhere the books, there's Google Books. There's an audio
We'll
book.
tie theirs out of the storm.
Yes.
Yes.
And you can buy the book right off the website, fitsquad.com, P-H-I-T, fit.
Fit Squad with the PHIT squad.com.
That's good.
Well, thank you so much again for coming. Everyone go check out his book, please. And if you are curious, go reach out to him on his website at PHIT squad.com. Thank you everyone for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and share. And also don't forget if you're more of an audio person, I'm noticing there's a rise in people listening to the audio style of the show. So Apple Podcast, Spotify, Audible, iTunes, whatever, it's all out there. So you can find it. But yeah, go ahead and subscribe there too, guys. That would mean a whole lot to me. So thank you everyone for watching, and be on the lookout for many, many more episodes coming soon. Take care, everybody.